In a world where news is everywhere, but the truth isn't always clear, it's time for a show that gives you straight talk on the issues that matter. From politics that shapes our future, the social issues that affect us all, to the economy that impacts your wallet every day. Join us for the Straight Talk Show, where we go beyond the headline and give you the real story. Politicians, economy, nothing's off the table. Get ready to hear it all the way it should be. Straight, no filters, no compromise. Are you ready for the truth? Watch Straight Talk Show with Jenk Sala, only on ThinkMina Media. Welcome to another episode of Straight Talk Show. This is your host, Babukar Jeng. I'm sure many of you will agree with me, within this past decade or two, we have an influx of, tubabs with a black skin, which I believe that many of you will agree that it's an alarming number that we have seen them, but they're on a different mission. They're not tourists. They're just more than a tourist. These are people who are picked up from here unwillingly, close to plus minus 500 years ago, taken as slaves. And most of them here are repatriates who want to come back home. And the African diaspora, as we call them, which is the right name, consists of almost 200 million melanated, rich individuals whom are descendants of tens of millions of kidnapped and deported persons from the African continent during the course of over 500 years of enslavement. And looking at the African continent and the perceptions that are formed during the course, I believe that just to come back home and be accepted as one of us is a bit of a challenge. There are a couple of experiences by individuals and groups and Pan-Africanists. And I think from my own perception that sameness is not oneness. You have people with different mindsets, with different environment, from a different demography, with different circumstances, coming in to integrate in a different demography, with different mindsets, and a different socio-economic environment. I believe that it takes a lot. It's not going to be that easy, and it's going to take time, but I believe it's possible. So here with me, I have a very interesting character who is Reverend Dr. Elon J. Silver, who is a diasporan who fell in love with Gambia at first visit, which I believe many does. And Doctor, welcome to the Straight Talk Show. And believe me, it's straight talk.
Yes, sir.
We say it as it is.
Yes, sir.
Comme ni mo leen ko baaxee di waxee, fii la lépp di leere, a bee be bundi la ñoo kono jàng. And don't worry, you can say your local name, Bunja Jeng. Yeah. Welcome to the show.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. So you want me to introduce myself?
Yeah, you can introduce yourself and
okay. Yeah. So if I'm to be referred to formally, I would be the Reverend Dr. Elon J. Sylvester.
Yeah.
Right? But recently I have been associating with some individuals who have given me an interesting alias, Punja Jeng. And I like it. I actually like it. I actually think that we, as you call us, tubabs, black-skinned tubabs, we have to assume that African identity once more. And taking on a name is probably a good initiation. and a way to start becoming normalized in this environment.
So who is Bunja Jeng? Who is Elon, doctor?
Yes. Well, basically, if I can answer that question in an anecdotal fashion, right? A few years ago, I just became a little bit tired of the cold in the United States. I've been living in the United States, originally from Trinidad and Tobago in the Caribbean, but I've been living in the United States for like 40 years. And my wife and I, who have been married for almost 25 years, we just sort of became a little bit tired of the cold and the hustle and bustle of New York. And we decided, you know what, maybe we should look to move to Florida, where it's a little warmer and where it's there's less hustle, So I persuaded her that now was the time to do it. And she consented. So I started looking around in Florida to see if we could find a place and where we can make a new start. And every time I get on the internet, on YouTube particularly, I'm seeing all of these stuff about Africa and the move back to Africa and all of that stuff. And I became pretty interested because this is something that I always wanted to do. I think that born in the heart of every individual, or in fact, most people in the West, most Black people, that is a desire to find out a little bit more about our ancestral land, Africa. And I, being the person that I am, I have that passion also. So I said, you know what, maybe I should really explore the possibility of going to Africa instead of moving to Florida. And I played with the idea a little bit in my mind. And then I decided, I'm going to do it. Let me go see what's in Africa. Gambia seemed to be the one that was, out there the most, at least was most possible. While Ghana was the one that most African Americans seemed to be leaning towards, I didn't want to go where everybody else was going. So I said, let me kind of try the unbeaten path. And Gambia was it. So I told my wife, I'm going to Gambia. And she was like, go ahead. And then a week before I was supposed to leave, she said, I'm coming too.
Wow.
And next thing you know, we are both here in Gambia. And we spent just about 10 days and we loved it. Particularly me, I particularly loved it because it reminded me so much of my own origins in the Caribbean. It's basically the same thing, even things that we say, things that we eat, the way we live, some of the cultural activities. It was so similar to what I was originally used to as a child. So I felt comfortable. I felt at home. In spite of the fact that, they think we are two babs, I felt good. I really felt good. And then, of course, I would say the Black instincts in me began to kick in. And I saw that I can make a difference here. I could, pursue some of the passions that I have, to help our people all over the world, in whatever circumstance that they are. We could do a little bit more to help them. So I said, let's consider doing some investments here. And I prevailed on my wife, and she was like, all right, let's do it. And we decided that we were going to start making some investments in this country and start doing as much as we can to help our people here in this country in very specific ways.
Yes, I think I will put my finger on that, especially the investment bit, because I think when it comes to investment, that has to do with economics. And I'm sure there are a lot of hurdles down that line, which I'll come to that.
Yes.
And looking at your introduction, looking and, probably seeing Gambia, and having the interest, I think it's a divine call, that you ended up in Gambia, but it's a journey. And every journey has its hurdles. Even when you're on the flight, sometimes you have turbulences, the flight have some kind of, rough times. And I'm sure you must have gone through, certain rough edges, looking at, Africa and looking at, Gambia. And you used to, some form of, protocols and organized stuff, where you're from, where you don't belong, of course, coming back home for the first time, and home is not like home. And what were the hurdles? There are positive and there are negatives. And as for this platform, we just really want to make things clear. Some of them might be out there thinking that, okay, it's going to be all hunky dory, just slot a coin and have coffee, just comes your way. Come to the airport, you want to go upstairs, all you stand and just it takes you up right there. You know what I mean? So at the end of the day, Africa is just Africa, and looking at the level of development, and thank God, it's things are evolving. Looking at the way the globe is gradually, unfolding certain things that was not precedented. So what were the hicks and the hurdles that you have in you?
Yeah. The hurdles has been many, and the challenges that are here is sometimes quite bewildering, and sometimes even discouraging. However, we are determined to navigate all of the difficulty and to be successful at what we are trying to do. Before I can answer that question specifically, I should, give a little more information by way of introduction. Right? My background is that I am a pastor in a well-established denomination in the United States. I have decided to take a sabbatical for 1 year to get away from my normal ministerial duties and to engage something that is more practical. You understand? Something that, spiritually, I think it's a little more meaningful than what I've been doing. And it's something that is a passion project of mine. And that is that, all my life, I've always heard about Africa, and I've always wanted to have something to do with Africa. So I decided that I'm going to pursue this passion. So I took a sabbatical year, and thus far 7 months has elapsed already, and I'm just trying to get settled. We're not even settled yet, and the time is almost up. So most likely we may have to ask for an extension. However, the reason that I took the sabbatical is because when I came here the first time, my wife and I, our hearts melted in us when we saw the children. Our little African children, they are so cute. They are so sweet. Their eyes are bright, and there's so much promise. The potential is there. And then, we ask ourselves the question, why is it 11 o'clock in the day and all of these kids are at home? And then we were told, well, their parents don't have money to send them to school. And we're like, what do you mean? Because where we come from, up in the United States, all children, if you see a child home at 11 o'clock, that parent has to answer to the government. Why is that child not in school? And more than likely, you may lose that child. There's a possibility that they will remove that child from the home because they think that there is something untoward going on, something adverse in that family domestic life, So, well, here it's norm that 11, 12, 2 o'clock in the day, children are at home playing. And we were asking, well, why are they not at school? And someone said, well, some of them goes to Islamic school, some goes to the government school, but there are not a lot of spaces available. But most of them have to pay to go to school. I think even to the government schools, I'm not sure. And that sort of really melted our hearts when we heard that children are not being educated, and then I started to look into the statistics here in the Gambia when it comes to education and children and Africa on a whole. And we know, Africa has so much promise for the future. The population on this continent, the average age is 18. And if these children are not being educated, how are we preparing these children for the future? You look all around the world, and what they're realizing is that there's aging population in most of the developed countries. I was looking at some statistics lately, and they said the average age in Japan is like 49, right? The average age in Sweden is 59, So in the developed world, the population is aging. But in Africa, the average age is 18.
So the future is here then?
The future is in Africa, right? What would happen then? Manufacturing, industry is going to have to move here because this is where the youthful population is. You understand? And this is where they're going to have to come to hire the labor force of the future.
Mm.
But the question is, what is being done to prepare these children to engage in that demand that is forthcoming? And I'm just thinking that myself as an African in the West, what are we doing to accommodate that kind of statistic? What are we doing to help our brothers and sisters here on the motherland to come into that place of ascendancy that they need to be in order to facilitate the demand that is going to be created on this continent? Or are we going to have to import people like some of the developed world to fill up the base or to carry the strain of development? So the whole idea is that my wife and I decided, why don't we use our own resources? And why don't we do some give back? Let's go to the continent, right? Let's not depend on our broader organization or any individual, unit of that denomination to help us. But let's take our own resources. Let's go back there and engage ministry in a different way. And that is that we use our own resources. We make investments where there might be some profitability. And then what we could do is redirect that profitability into helping to build a better future for some of the people that we would impact, in this process. Long-winded answer.
Actually, don't you think that every single visitor out there, including the Tubabs,
Yes.
and anybody that comes to Gambia, sees that vulnerability? Because when you look at the list of charities that are there trying to intervene and help, don't you think that you guys will be doing the same? Don't you think what makes it different with you as an African coming back home, from those Tubabs who also came, because some of them pack their bags and come and stay here like any other African? They feel that, okay, this is where they belong, even though they're white. So what makes it different between you as an African coming back home? Because we have seen a couple of Africans who packed their things and run and came back and pack their things again and run back home. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So what exactly is the difference?
Yeah, they pack their things and run back again because the challenges are great. But you got to understand something, that Africa have the capacity to absorb as much help as it could get. Right? I mean, we come from the West and we know what we are used to there. And when you come here, you see so much ways that this country has the need, right, to be able to embrace as much science and technology and engineering and stuff like that as it could possibly get to prepare it for the future that it's entitled to, right? So, I mean, as much people as want to come here and lend a helping hand, I think it's good. You have to be careful also that some of the people that are coming don't have the best of intentions. A lot of times good things or bad things come in good packages, you see, and a lot of times there are subliminal agendas in the face or presented well. All that glitters, as they say, isn't gold. Malcolm X made a statement once. He says, not because you throw food in the water, it means that you're a friend of the fish. Right? And that you have to be so careful about that, right? The difference between myself, my wife, and some of the people out there is that this for us is a passion project, as I said before. We literally want to help to the extent that we are willing to use our own resources to do so. And as many people as we could influence, or many people that come alongside us and are willing to make that contribution, we're going to use that to facilitate whatever development we could help to bring. You see? So I'm thinking that we don't think that we are unique in any way, except that we are genuine. We are real. And you know, I talk to so many people like myself here in the Gambia because there's a huge repat population. We hate to think of ourselves as Tubabs. You know, and I would say it emphatically, we're not Tubabs. We are returning sons and daughters of this continent, right? Because our forebearers were taken away from here by force. They didn't go on a cruise. They didn't get on a cruise ship. You know, they didn't even take the back way to get over there, right? Somebody threw a bag over their heads in the night and whisked them off and broke them and beat them and exploited them and oppressed them for 444 years. And then in the 100 and something years subsequent to that, here we are as the children of these people saying that, you know, in all of what has been done in the recent past, we have survived, we have struggled, we have kept our head above water. And now we are some of the Africans who are out there, you understand, who have been able to survive and to achieve a great deal. And in order for us to be respected, in order for us to be strong, we need a base. And what's that base? The base is right here in Africa.
Yes, the base is right here in Africa. You spoke about genuinity, authenticity.
Yes.
But the proof of the pudding is in the eating. Like I said, many pack up and came and packed up and run.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm sure you must be aware when you came in of the cultural setup, the spiritual structure, and the socio-economic situation that is around what you're about to do. And you belong to a ministry, which is a reality, even though you are on holidays. And Gambia is a country which is 95% Muslims, and Muslims to the core who believe in their religion. There is quite a lot of denominations when it comes to the Christian world. The Roman Catholics are there, the Anglicans are there, you have, you know, the born-agains, you have different sects. And you as an individual, fine, or as a group that wants to come and give back, and having that cap on, which I believe all Gambians would see that, okay, this cap is on, how are you going to navigate and walk on a land, because it's like mines on the land, that you might step on the wrong mine and just boom, it happens. The next minute you will tell me, oh, Mr. Jang, Bunja is going back home. I don't want to hear that, you know. But how are you going to navigate, you know, within these choppy waters of, you know, religion and culture, spirituality, you know, poverty, these economic circumstances? Somebody out there with his hammer trying to wait for you, you know, just to come, just to hit you on the head and just get some few dollars from you. You know, how exactly are you going to, you know, navigate within these choppy waters?
Well, in the short time that we have been here, we have encountered a lot of people like that. You know, I could give you several anecdotes about people who have tried to bamboozle us and rip us off. Some of them were successful, actually. But, you know, it is what it is. And regardless of where you go, there is good and bad. You understand? On the most part in the Gambia, I find people that are loving and giving and caring.
Like myself, yeah?
Yes, like yourself. Because in the short time that we have known each other, we have become friends fast. We become old friends fast, you know, because, you know, you are one of the people who give of yourself in so many different ways. And I got to compliment you on that.
Thank you.
And say thank you to you for being such a kind person to us. But on the whole, we are wise enough. I mean, I come from New York. If you think you have scammers here, you try New York. If you think you could be bamboozling bamboozled here, you try to see New York, you know. So we are pretty savvy people, you know, but of course, from time to time, you could always let your guards down and boom, right? We think that we could navigate this and still be successful. We know that we could be successful. Am I addressing that question properly?
I mean, the challenges of the cultural,
Yes,
spiritual,
okay, yes.
you as a pastor, and you know.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I'm operating here not necessarily as a pastor. You know, I'm on sabbatical, but you know, as a pastor, sometimes you take off one hat, you put on another. My basic spiritual principles remain intact. You understand? I love God. I'm a believer in God, and that transcends denomination, and it transcends all of the religious labels that are out there, right? My aim is to do good, and doing good doesn't have necessarily to do with being a Christian.
So are we eventually expecting a church? That's what we do here.
I would more say a wisdom center.
A wisdom center.
A wisdom center, where we could have a good exchange of information. As you said, this country is 95% Islamic, right? Everybody here goes to church. I mean, everybody not goes to church, but at least goes to mosque, right? On a Friday evening is the easiest place to pass because most people are in mosque. The street is not as busy because people are engaged in their spiritual activities. And once someone is spiritual, African people on a whole are very spiritual people. You know, whatever label we put on us or they put on us, we are very spiritual people, you know, and that's not something that could be taken away from us. And it's not my intention to try to take that away from anyone, right? But the fact is this, that I'm here to do good. And good doesn't come with a label. Good is something that is unique, and at the same time, it's ubiquitous. It's common to all of us. Even within Islamic circles, you see the effort to do good. Question is, can we work together? And I don't see any inhibitions to that thus far.
Yes. The question is, can we work together? The key to a healthy nation is to align the social will, the value system, and the principles of togetherness. I'm sure the audience have some interesting takeaways. And this side of the show, we're going to go a little bit legal because with my little encounter with some of the reparts, many of them are fighting for citizenship, and some of them want automatic citizenship because they think they deserve it. They're from here, so automatically when they come, they have to be given citizenship, which from my own point of view, it's a bit technical because every country that you go, they have their immigration regulations, and probably the amount of time that is attached to having a citizenship in the country have some conditions that are around it. And if I may be right, or I might get it wrong, it's 15 years to have citizenship, which I'm not sure. I'm not sure. What exactly is your take on that? Are the countries that the reparts go fair on you guys, or they are not fair on you? You know, looking at history and you wanting to come back home, I think most of you are left stateless. You are either here or there. So what exactly is your take?
Well, you know, that issue is such a ticklish issue. And as far as we as returning brethren and sisters are concerned, we don't think that we are or we should be treated as other ethnicities, people coming as real foreigners to be here, right? As I said before, we were not taken from here willingly. And let me say that a little more clear. We didn't volunteer to leave this land to go to the West, right? We were taken by force. And we were kept in subjugation, really imprisoned for 444 years. Subsequent to that, it wasn't legal slavery, but it was Jim Crowism and all this different, marginalizing policies that kept us in an intangible jail.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But over the years, we have developed an awareness. We have developed our knowledge. We have research, and we have become informed, as some people try to call it woke.
Mm-hmm.
Horrible thing, but we are now aware.
Mm-hmm.
And we have decided that a good thing for us
Mm-hmm.
and for this continent and for our brothers and sisters here
Mm-hmm.
would be for us to reconcile, and to transcend the slave trade and to reestablish our roots here
Mm-hmm.
on the continent.
Mm.
This is where we're from. This is where our history is not based in slavery. Our history is based here on this continent. And all of the things that preceded the European invasion and the other invasions that took place of this continent, we have been here. Nevertheless, to get specifically to the question that you ask, we're here. And, we are encountering so much problems becoming regularized and becoming accepted and embraced, right? We have chosen to come here. We were not born here, but we have chosen to come here. And we are coming again with our passion open, with our hearts on our sleeves. We want to help. We want to make a difference here,
Like I say, to me, it's a bit unrealistic just saying that the people should look at you different. And like I said, sameness is not oneness. It's not just going to happen overnight. And there are realities that are around immigration and movement, because 400 years ago, 500 years ago, there were no passports. And when you guys came back with a passport, because you need a passport to travel. And that passport bears the citizenship of another country. So coming into another country with a different passport requires different regulations, because even with Gambians that have double passports, when they want to run for office at some point, they have to cancel one citizenship. They either be American or Gambian. So, just to get you into, because when you look at my own point of view, when the white people came to Africa, what they did is they redesigned Africa, knowing that 500 years later, they would want to come back home. So they're coming back from a system designed by the colonial master themselves, because we have same systems here. So it looks like you're coming from a system into a system that is redesigned, that is connected to that system. So how exactly are you going to clarify that?
Yeah, that's an important thing. I looked at an interview recently with the richest black man in the world, Mr. Dangote from Nigeria. And he was complaining that he needed 35 visas to navigate Africa. And every time he has to travel, he has to send his passport somewhere to get clearance, so that he, the richest man in Africa, the richest black man in the world, to navigate the continent in which he was born, where everybody in that continent, have some similarity with him. He said it's harder for him to navigate Africa than for somebody coming from Europe who doesn't have those restrictions. They could come and they could go from port to port without visas.
But it's crystal clear. The system is designed for them, not for us.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Why? Why countries that are governed by our people should sustain a system that was not put in place by them, right? When we, our forebears, were taken from here There was no Gambia. There was no Senegal. There was none of these things. Some people came here, draw lines and carve us up and give us all of these strange identities. And now we have become our biggest enemies in that instead of facilitating reconciliation, instead of facilitating us coming back together and becoming great again, right? We are sustaining the systems put in place by our captors and by our oppressors. And that to me is something that we need to overcome. We need to look at that again. We need to revisit these things, right? Some countries have that degree of enlightenment. For instance, Ghana has had now for a couple of years, since 2019, I believe, an open door policy where they are welcoming and encouraging Africans in the diaspora to return. Come home, come home, right? So also I know Sierra Leone, once you can show in your DNA that you have links to Sierra Leone, from what I saw on YouTube, you could get your citizenship there within 2 years. You know, and many other African countries are adopting the same policy, right? These protectionist policies that is telling people like us, stay away. I don't think it benefits Gambia because if you look at as a demographic, say African Americans, they are some of the wealthiest Black people in the world, right? They have skill, knowledge, training, education, everything that Africa needs. And for you to put up these policies that rejects and tell them, don't come here, or if you come here, we're going to exploit your resources, we're going to take your education, we're going to take everything from you and give you nothing back. You know, it's unfair to us. Right? So if we're coming here and we're bringing resources into tangible resources and intangible resources, education, you know, money and investing here, there should be some degree of facilitation for that. This country needs it. The rate of development that Gambia needs, right, could only come if you have a heavy and a quick influx of the resources that could come here by these people coming to this country. So I say, and I think that it would be a good idea for Gambia to look at that. Now, I know that the average Gambian, you know, don't see the need for something like this. But the fact is that if Gambia has to develop at the rate that it needs to develop, you understand, to catch up with the rest of the world, they need that kind of resources and they need it fast. Other nations are recognizing it and they're grabbing. And they say to African Americans, come. I mean, look at what's going on in Rwanda. Look what's going on in Kenya. Look what's going on in Ghana. Look what's, I mean, right now, Burkina Faso is beginning to say to African Americans and to Africans in the West, come here. The AU has already identified the 6th district of the African Union, right, which is the diaspora. And they recognize that we are people taken from here and we should be given, you understand, the right of return, good, and facilitated with policies that are not as onerous as it is on other people coming here. You know, so this is a long-winded answer to a question like that.
Anyways, looking at the immigration bit, it's a bit technical, I'm sure.
Yes.
And I believe that it wouldn't be fair for me to, you know, bulldoze you with immigration because you understand American immigration laws, but not Gambian immigration laws. And, you know, technically there are some loopholes and ups and downs, and there's a lot of talk that is going on. And I'm seeing this whole thing of coming back home is the, you know, the Luther Kings, you know, the Malcolm X's, you know, and you name all those freedom fighters, the Garveys. And down here, you're looking at the Mandelas, you know, the Lumumbas, you know, all those great freedom fighters, the Steve Bikos, and
Lamumba.
Exactly. But it takes more than that. You know, there's a reality that you cannot just take out of the whole equation.
Yes.
You know, the one who crafted all these, you know, thing that's going on still exists. The one who designed all these systems still exists. And all these freedom fighters, when you look at them, most of them were assassinated. They were killed.
Yes.
Looks like there's someone watching. And someone is trying to protect some kind of interest some economic interests with some economic hitmen that nobody touches, so it's whole complicated. And I believe that we're living in times where evolution have taken place. I think things have to be cleverly done, and we don't just have to fight over, certain things that we can sit down and dialogue. And so now, coming here, I believe in the principles of togetherness.
Yes.
The reparts, no matter where they come from, I'm sure you will agree with me that the reparts that come from the United States are quite different from the reparts that come from the UK, because it's different environments, from a different setup. So when you guys come here, I believe there should be some form of community, some form of, togetherness where, all the efforts will be consolidated and the voice is consolidated so that the authorities can hear. So what are the efforts? Because everything depends on the process.
Mm-hmm.
If the process is well done, I'm sure the outcome will be big. But individual voices and separated groups won't have that impact, because our governments, to be honest, have so much on their table to deal with. Politics is different in Africa, especially in countries that are challenged economically, like Gambia. It's a different ball game. And anything that's, kind of agitating whatever is there, the government will only look at the interests of the government, not the interests of what is out there, no matter what it brings economically. It's only in words that they know that, okay, this could bring this much, but physically and practically it has never happened. There is no prototype. There's nothing that has ever happened that has impacted. It's either individuals who came and invested, and probably their investments go down the drain, or a group that invested. So that huge impact that will impact the economy takes a lot. So what exactly, is there on the table to gather? Because I heard there are a lot of groups, that are existing. Probably there's Code over there. There's a Dango and all these groups that are out there. So what is there to consolidate all this effort to make it a very strong movement? To be able to, tackle all these issues.
Well, there's two parts to the answer. One is that I think Gambia has to realize certain things. And then the second part is that we, as reparts returning, have to realize certain things, right? As reparts, we got to understand that there are differences between us, right? Okay, those coming from Britain or from different parts of Europe have a different cultural experience than those of us coming from the United States. We're here and then we butt heads, because we have different expectations of each other. Nevertheless, we have one common passion. We love Africa. Good. We see this as our roots, and we know we want to be here to make a contribution, you understand, and to sometimes run away from the indignities that we suffer in the West. Come back here and be in a place where the police officer stops you in the street and he doesn't have a gun on his waist and he smiles at you and he say, "How are you doing today?" As opposed to you end up being dead with somebody kneeling on your neck. You see what I'm saying? So we have this common understanding as we come here, right? In the Gambia, I think they need to realize that you cannot be penny wise and pound foolish. I don't know if you understand that expression.
You cannot be penny wise and pound foolish.
Yeah, meaning that you want to pinch pennies. We're not realizing that you can get a whole lot more while you're pinching your pennies and trying to stretch that penny to make things work. You're not looking at the dollars that's flowing past you or the pounds that's flowing past you. You see, returning Africans are bringing resources that could contribute to the development of this land. You see, right? And they're coming regardless of what, right? With what's going on now in the United States and in other parts of the West, with the conservative movement just burgeoning and taking over. I personally believe that a lot of Black folks would reconsider being in the West and would be looking towards Africa. So our local politicians here must understand that you have to See how you can make use of that. You see, tap that market. And the wise ones in other countries are beginning to do that. Tap that market, bring them back,
I
and
mean, but
facilitate that return.
tapping that market comes
Mhm.
to stimulus and response. The Chinese came and stimulated,
Yes.
our government responded.
Mhm.
The Indians came and stimulated, our government responded.
Mhm.
It's about action.
Yes.
I think putting aside all the negativity and looking at the other side of the coin, pretty much Chinese are doing good.
Yes.
You know,
Mhm.
you cannot just, bastardize them all over.
Mhm.
At least they come, they build bridges, they do investments, they do, certain things. They take, but they give. So presenting yourselves, I think, should be on a different level because speeches have been done. They've had talks and they've had promises. These diasporans are going to come with benefits, economic benefits. So, but Africans, there's a saying that goes here. I don't know where it is out there. Actions speak louder than words.
Mhm.
So I think it's about time for us to sift from the slogans and talks and paper and like hit the ground and do something powerful, something big that will
Yes.
that will get the attention of our so-called authorities.
Yeah.
So
I'm
yeah,
glad you're saying that. I'm glad you're saying that because I don't think that returning Africans are given the credit that they deserve. Because many of us are here and we are bringing tremendous resources with us. And we are investing and we are not getting some of the protections that we need. I mean, even within recent weeks and recent months, you see what has been going on with some of the repats that came back to Gambia. Some people are being killed, some people are being murdered, robbed, houses broken into, and of course they have to deal with some of the criminal elements that are here, right? But the fact that they are being targeted in this way means that they have something to offer, some value that someone is seeing, that probably the people in authority isn't recognizing.
but do you
Good.
think that is on a micro level?
I
Like,
would
because I think
say,
individuals have issues. Like when you look at some of these murders,
yeah,
um, uh, respect to the families,
yes,
and my condolences to the families that are bereaved.
yes,
Um, uh, most of them have relationship with the people that murdered them.
hmm
The other was a personal relationship,
hmm
and the other was murdered by his driver. There's
yes,
some sort of work relationship with them.
yes, hmm
So that comes down to the question of either is it a question of national security or a question of individual intentions of economic exploitation or yeah.
Yeah, what was carried in the news? I know for the brother that was killed a couple 2 or 3 months ago, um, that driver was his employee, and
Mm,
that guy's intent, from what we saw in the newspapers and what was carried on the news, is that guy just wanted to steal the truck,
mhm.
sell it so he could get some money to go through the back to go to Europe. So the guy saw value in what this brother brought to the Gambia, and he wanted to just have his way. One of the sisters that was killed just before that, the guy actually tried to rob her and kill her and threw her in the septic tank. He robbed her, stole her car, and what have you, and that's what was carried in the news. But what I'm saying is that if ordinary people could recognize that there's value in what these people are bringing, I think that those in authority should also recognize the value. And you have to understand too that we are coming from different places, not in terms of countries, but different places in terms of our the society. Like for instance, um, a person coming from China may have help from the Chinese government because with their Belts and Road Initiative, they're facilitating some of these people with loans and with monies to go all over the world and invest. Some people coming from India is also being facilitated from these things. But who is lending money to the average Black person in the West to come back here? Right? So they're coming with a little less resources than some of these big firms that are coming to Africa. There's no way we could compete with them. But they're coming with a willingness to work and to bring the resources that they have. Cumulatively, the effect is big, because from what I'm hearing, that one of the biggest income in the Gambia is money that comes back from repats, billions of dollars every year. Good. I heard that that's a big part of the GDP of this country, and it exceeds the products that actually leave the country. You see, so that must be given some value. That must be given some credence, because we also are bringing resources to this country, and as a result, right, our return should be facilitated. Now, let me just address one more thing that you said, differences between us and what have you. In the United States, where I lived for almost 40 years, you have all kinds of differences. You have the North and the South. And they don't like each other too much, but they get along.
The East
You
Coast
have
and
the
the West
East
Coast.
and the West and the Midwest. You understand?
The Tupacs and the Biggies.
Yes, you have you have all of these little struggles and these little stresses going on in between them. You have the MAGA crowd and you have the Democrats. You have the MAGA crowd and you have the regular Republicans. You see, but the fact is that at the end of the day, they recognize themselves to be Americans, and you mess with one of them, you will have hell to bear. You see what I'm saying? We got to understand that this is the unity that we need to develop with ourselves as Black people all around. We are damaged.
Yes, uniformity is not unity. People unite in hearts and minds and preferences. I will cut the show here, and next on the show, we take up our next interviewee.
Yes.
Thank you for coming to Straight Talk Show.
Thank you.
Comme niñ ko baaxee di waxee rek, fii la lépp di leeree. Abe, be bunde la ñoo ko na jàng. Thanks for coming.
All right.